Hello and welcome to this section of Mastering Excel. We've already introduced the concept of creating charts. I think you can see by now how incredibly simple it is, but Excel gives a lot of different options for a lot of different types of charts. And so what we're going to do in this section is explore some of the most common ways in which you would use the different types of charts in Excel. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. It's not an all-inclusive list because there are dozens and dozens of types of chart options and so on. So there's thousands of combinations of what you can do here. But this will be very, very common ways in which to use Excel. All right, so the first thing is I'm going to do a quick recap. If we select, for instance, these two columns here, we can then go to Insert. Let's say we're going to do a bar chart, and we can display this guy as bar chart. And so we've done that before. What I want to show you now is if I've already selected the chart, how do I, or decided on what kind of chart? Let's say that I change my mind and I decide that I want to actually modify the type of chart that this is. Maybe I want a horizontal bar chart instead of what I've done here. So instead of deleting it and starting over, just click on the chart and you see the new ribbon tool, and we see the design format. Okay, we're going to get to some of these other options a little bit later, but if you go over here, change chart type. And then you're brought up to this dialog where literally you can scroll down and see all of the different types of charts. In this case, let's go to bar chart, and we get a preview of what we would get if we select this horizontal chart like this. That looks pretty good to me, so we'll hit OK. The chart immediately updates to reflect the new design that we have. So literally you can use change chart type to change your mind on any of these designs and completely change the look and the flow of the information. So don't worry if you've selected something and it's not perfect, just put it in your sheet, and then later on down the line, if you decide to update it or something of that nature, then you can go from there. All right, now the next thing I'd like to do is show you a different type of chart. This is a bar chart. Let me go and delete this now. And let's say we're going to explore the concept of a clustered bar chart. So let me go and select the annual salary. I'm going to hold the Control key, and I'm going to hold down the yearly sales and select this information. So now we've got the name of the people, their salaries. We have yearly sales there. All right, and actually what I'm going to do is hold this down along with the title, annual salary, and the title, yearly sales. So I've selected the title up here along with the data and the title along with the data here, and you'll find that Excel uses that information. So let's go to Insert, and if you just click Recommended Charts, Excel is going to give you some recommendations because it knows that you have two sets of data going along with these people. This is actually what we call a clustered column chart. It's exactly what I want. So let me go ahead and hit OK and let you take a look at what this actually is. What we have here is a chart where each person here has two bar graphs, right? The blue one is labeled annual salary. Where do you think Excel got the information that this was annual salary? It got it from the title of my numbers here. And the orange one is labeled yearly sales, and it got that one because of the title that was selected over there. And you can see right away graphically that some of these people didn't make any money for you. It's the same information that's in the chart, but you can see graphically, hey, Mr. Franks here is earning a whole heck of a lot of money, but he sure isn't bringing very much money in. And Dino is earning less, and he didn't really do too well. But this person, Jason, he's amazing, right? That's me. And he did a lot of really good work here with the yearly sales, but he's just not getting compensated very much. So this kind of graphical representation, it pulls information out of the tables and the calculations that you perform, and it allows you to graphically see what's going on, which can be extremely powerful. So that's what we call a clustered column chart is what they call it. Let me click this guy and show you that also if you go down to bar chart, you have a clustered bar chart, which is exactly the same information but laid on its side. So you can see Dino has some negative revenue here. Franks has negative revenue. This particular representation for this particular set of information is a little bit cluttered because the dollar signs down here run together. You can change some of this stuff, you know, as you get into formatting in Excel, but I just wanted to show you that you can lay it on its side. You can go vertical. That is a very, very common type of chart that you might use. And so just remember the trick that if you're going to select additional information, then you're going to want to hit the Control key and hold it down while you do that. All right. Now the next thing I want to do is go to the Stacked tab that I have here where I have, and I'll zoom in just a little bit, where I have some sales data for these people, Jason, Fred, Stephanie, Bob, and Jenny. And we're all selling lots of big ticket items. We're selling Toyotas, we're selling Hondas, and we're selling boats, just generic boats. And so I would like to get a few different ways to visualize how this looks. So let me go ahead and highlight everything, including the titles, because the titles are going to feed into the labels of the chart like we showed before. Now, if you go to Insert, and if you go to Recommended Charts, it's going to give you exactly the same type of chart that we had last time. It's a clustered column chart. It's very, very common. And if you look at the clustered column chart, it is going to graphically show you what these people are doing. And you can see immediately that Jason is the guy that sells the most Toyotas, followed closely by Fred. But Honda sales, it's no contest. Stephanie wins big time. She is just having a fantastic year. And so you can just see from the legend, you can compare blue, 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 blue. You can compare orange, 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 and so on. And you can also immediately see that this boats, selling these boats is just not very profitable for this company because nobody is selling any of these boats. Stephanie had a blowout year in Honda sales. Let me delete that real quick and keep everything highlighted and go over here to Insert and show you a couple of different options. Under the clustered column chart, okay, or under the column chart, here is the clustered column. If you go over here, this is what you call a stacked column, which you can select right from here. And a stacked column is very, very useful because it's displaying exactly the same information, but everybody's revenue is stacked on top of each other, but it's color coded. So I can immediately compare all the blue ones together and see who's doing well there. I can compare the orange ones and see who's doing well there. And I can see at the top, nobody's really selling too many boats, but it's all stacked on top of each other, which lets you read the total revenue. I can see that Stephanie pulled in $14,000 for the year. I can see Jason pulled in just shy of $10,000 for the year because everything is stacked. If you had left it as a clustered chart, the same information is there, but it doesn't really let you read the total amount because you'd have to add everything together for each person. The stack chart is very useful for that kind of thing. And don't forget, whenever you have a chart selected, you could just go to Change Chart Type and then select a new one that you're after. And so on. You also have these three-dimensional options. This is a three-dimensional cluster chart. So it's the same exact thing. It's just three-dimensional. We have a 3D stacked chart. All right. So you can just play around with these things. And, you know, sometimes people like 3D stuff and sometimes people don't. Well, that's called a stacked chart. Let me go over here to my tab called Line. What I'd like to do is zoom in here and show you how line graphs look in Excel. Here I have a company or whatever, and I have dates from July 1st through July 11th. And this is the number of sick employees that I have here on any given day. So on the 11th of July, 2 people were sick, for instance. So I would like to look at this information. I highlight everything, and I go to Insert. And maybe I'm not quite sure what the best option is for this kind of data. I really don't know. So I click, let's say, Recommended Charts. Excel is going to recommend a line chart. That's what this means right here. Because it knows that whenever it says a line chart is used to display trends over time, years, months, and days, and it knows that this is a date information here, so it's just going to assume that it's good. But you might prefer a bar chart or a clustered column chart is what they call it. This is also displaying the same information. Personally, I like the second option, which is basically or I should say, I like the first option, which is a nice line chart there. So I hit OK. And then I've got a nice little graphical representation. Now, let me ask you a question. What do you think is happening on the 4th of July? I've got 10 people sick on the 4th of July. It sharply rises before the 4th of July, and then it gradually decays afterwards. This, to me, looks like a lot of people are calling in sick around the 4th of July and kind of trying to fool us instead of taking a vacation day. So this is a little bit of a contrived example, but basically it illustrates that you might not have noticed that, especially if you had thousands of employees or something here. You might not have noticed this trend, but when you see it graphically, you can certainly see the poke out. And this is something that you may want to have a talk with these employees and say, hey, what's going on here? All right, so that is a line graph typically used when you're plotting against time. All right, now let me go to the final one here. I'm going to go to scatter chart. Let me zoom in just a little. I can't really zoom in too much. You won't be able to see the information. Here I have time in seconds. I'm doing a scientific experiment. So I have a stopwatch, so 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and so on. As time goes by, I'm measuring the velocity of some bullet or something. I don't know, some car I'm racing down a track or something. So at time 0, the velocity is 0 meters per second. And as time goes on, the velocity goes up, 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 up. And I'm recording all this information with a computer. And if I were a scientist, I might have millions of entries of velocity. And I would like to plot it against seconds because I really can't see what the shape of this is going to look like just by staring at a bunch of numbers like this. So I highlight everything and I go to Insert. And again, I could do recommended charts, which is going to give me the right answer, but I know that this is XY data. I know I want to plot 0 versus 0, 1 versus 1.1. For each X column over here, I want to have a corresponding Y. And so that in Excel is called a scatter chart. Scatter chart. So this would be, and it actually tells you, use a scatter chart to compare at least two sets of values or pairs of data. This is a scatter chart with just the dots in place. I mean, you can see that the speed gradually goes up and it's kind of parabolic because then it shoots on up real high. So that maybe lines up with what I'm trying to test. All right, I can go to change chart type and under XY scatter, I can select the second option, which is exactly the same, but it draws a line between my points. So I can try to see, okay, what kind of line is it following? And then I can just have the line by itself if you want. This might be nice if you had millions of data points and you don't want to see the dots everywhere, but it kind of obscures the raw data. So this is basically what I wanted to show you in terms of the XY scatter plot function. It's a common thing that you might use, especially if you collected a lot of data. So in this section, we've covered a lot of material. We've covered how to use XY data or scatter data to create these charts. We've learned how to plot stacked data in a stacked bar graph. We've learned how to plot line graphs in terms of plotting against time. And we, of course, learned the regular old bar and column charts that we learned in the beginning. So in this lesson, we've covered, fair amount of different types of charts. But really, if you want to look inside in all the different kinds of charts, there are tons of different kinds of charts. And it's telling me here I don't have anything selected. If you select something, you can go in there and you can click all charts. All the different kinds of charts here. There's stock charts, surface charts if you have three-dimensional data, radar charts, pie charts. I mean, there's tons of different kinds of specialized charts in Excel that are going to suit your application. But here we've covered the most common, which would be the column charts, the line charts, the bar charts, and the XY scatter chart. So I encourage you to play around with this, to just get some data and just choose a few different kinds of charts and just see what they look like. And then I think after a while, you'll realize how incredibly versatile this feature of Excel really is.